Wow, this is really stunning. This was a Wall Street Journal exclusive posting these new details, that it was the first officer questioning the captain's apparent actions. He expressed surprise and then panic. The captain remained calm, and the names of those who were flying. It was First Officer Clive Kunder.
Pulse on Society here on Megyn Kelly's channel, breaking down the newest explosive revelations about that catastrophic Air India Flight 171 crash. New evidence from the Wall Street Journal points directly at the captain who allegedly shut off fuel switches just seconds after takeoff, sparking panic and a crash that killed nearly 241 people. Is it pilot suicide? Sabotage? Let's break this down with top aviation experts.
He was the pilot flying the plane, age 32. The captain, who remains calm and is under suspicion, was Sumit Sabharwal, a decades-long veteran. He is the one who flipped the switches, age 56. Wiz, let me start with you as our Top Gun grad and pilot. What do you make of this information?
Initially, Megyn, it's an absolute horror. It looks like a murder-suicide. As you alluded to, 787s just don't simply rotate, get airborne, and then settle back down. It looks like the captain, for whatever reason, wanted to check out that day. And
this exposes the terrifying reality that trusted pilots can become lethal threats, turning commercial aircraft into murder weapons with no warning. It's not just accident, it's intentional mass murder, raising urgent calls for cockpit surveillance reform.
Sadly, Megyn, this isn't the first example of a pilot just wanting to take an aircraft down or take people with them. Egypt Air 990 or the Germanwings mishap, I believe, in 2015. Before I started flying for FedEx, there was a famous incident with a former Flying Tigers pilot who was going to jump in the jump seat and crash a plane into FedEx headquarters so he could get the insurance. And, he didn't want to look like a murder, so he wanted to crash the airplane. So, Megyn, all indications are that the captain selected the cutoff position on the fuel switches about 10 seconds for that first officer who was flying the airplane to be a little confused and look around going, hey, what are we doing here? And then to put them back on. And sadly, one of the motors spooled up a little bit above idle, and the other one was just trying to come online, but it was too late. Real quick, Megyn, I know pilots' unions hate this, but we have like HD cameras on the other side of the moon. If we had some HD cameras in the cockpit instead of just a voice recorder, we'd know for absolute 100% certainty what happened. But for whatever reason, pilots' unions don't like a camera looking over their shoulder. Maybe this will change that.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's like being a cop. You got other people's lives potentially in your hands, and unfortunately, you may have to sacrifice a bit of privacy, because this is not the first time this has happened. I mean, just researching for the show, we have seen pilot, death by suicide, but while committing mass murder before. I mean, that crash, that German pilot in 2015 was the most recent, but there were many prior to that. Yeah. Captain Steve, as you look at the video of that plane, it was taking off and then, of course, comes back down. And it almost looks like a gentle come down, but obviously it wasn't, and it wasn't supposed to be coming down. And you hear these facts as reported by the Journal. What conclusions do you reach?
Well, at first, when you see that video, it doesn't make any sense. I've never seen anything like that. An airplane that takes off, it looks like it achieves flight fine. And then seconds later, maybe 4 or 5 seconds later, you can see the nose kind of come over. Clearly, the wings are losing lift, and the airplane then begins to settle into the buildings off the end of the runway. And it does look like it's landing, but it's not. We clearly know that at this point. The only answer to that is it's a dual engine failure, and what caused the dual engine failure. And I think now with this Wall Street Journal confirmation, plus a preliminary report, which, they parsed their words a little bit. They said the fuel control switches transitioned from run to cutoff. They don't transition. Somebody has to place them there. It's a 3-step process. You have to grasp the switch, pull it up because it's spring-loaded, pull it down, and let it go. So that's only a human has to do that. And there's no known procedure that I know of at 200 feet off the ground on rotate where you would grab those switches and put them to cutoff. So either way, it was pilot error, whether it was intentional or unintentional. I think now the Wall Street Journal has kind of concluded that it's intentional, and that's no surprise.
And my understanding is, and maybe you can speak to this, Patrick, but my understanding is they put a little guard on the control panel, dashboard, I'm not exactly sure what the right term is, but where they keep those fuel switches, there's like a little guard so that a pilot can't inadvertently like knock it with his hip or his hand while he's reaching for something. So it really does look like, by all accounts, here's a picture we got from the Daily Mail. For the listening audience, it shows a little control panel, and you can see the tiny little fuel levers, but to the right and to the left of them is like a little metal guard that stands up. And my understanding is, Patrick, that's to prevent anything inadvertent from happening.
That's correct. And I think we need to start out by saying that there's a lot here that we just don't know. The report that came out the other day was very preliminary. We don't even have a CVR transcript yet. You've mentioned a few times what we know. Well, what about all the things we don't know? And as a result, I tend to be a little more reserved and conservative in my assessment of what happened.
What do you think happened?
I don't know. We don't know. And
well, you say you're more reserved. How are you more reserved? What conclusion are you reaching?
I don't necessarily buy the murder-suicide scenario. I'm not saying it didn't happen. There's evidence leaning in that direction strongly. But the dynamics of the crash don't quite make sense that way. So let me get this straight. You're going to shut the engines off at the moment of rotation and glide to a crash. There are so many unknowns in a scenario like that. There's no guarantee that the crash would be catastrophic, that everybody would be killed, that the person who did it would be killed. Just to the left of the impact area where the plane hit is a mostly open stretch without buildings or larger obstructions. If the plane had just been a little more to that side, the crash could have been at least partly survivable. It just doesn't seem like the way somebody would go about doing something like that.
This highlights the rift between experts, showing how uncertainty still clouds the investigation, but the captain's actions defy conventional explanation, fueling suspicion and distrust toward official narratives.
Go back to Egypt Air and German wings and MH370, which almost certainly was a murder-suicide. It feels different, and there remains the distinct possibility, this is going to sound preposterous, that the fuel control switches were shut off accidentally, inadvertently, in a moment of absurd absent-mindedness. And while it sounds preposterous, that sort of thing has happened before.
For the listening audience, Patrick speaking, and both of our other pilots are shaking their heads no. But I like the disagreement. I appreciate the different opinions because we don't know what happened. Go ahead, Wiz.
I just couldn't disagree more, Megyn. If there was anything but what we've been talking about, they would go out of their...
Aviation insiders warn there's no plausible accident here. The absence of alternative explanations in an exhaustive, data-driven report hints at one grim conclusion: deliberate sabotage by the captain himself.
Way in this report to say it. If there was a hiccup in the electrical systems, Megyn, these jets are
you wouldn't know that yet.
Smart.
You would not know any of that yet. This is so
absolutely
early on.
Would know that. You would absolutely know that because these jets are tattletales.
Okay, let Wiz finish. Go ahead, Wiz.
No, those engines, they data link stuff directly to GE. The flight control computers, they know just about everything at this point. If there was any other straws they could be grasping at, they would throw that in the report right now. They did not. There was no electrical hiccups. There was no contaminated fuel. They put in this preliminary report, very preliminary stuff, obviously, what they believe. If there was any other thing on God's green earth, they probably would have written that down.
Go ahead, Captain Steve. You had your thoughts. I'll come back to you in 1 second, Patrick. I'll come right back to you. Let me get Captain Steve in.
This segment unpacks the spine-chilling evidence pointing at a captain who allegedly caused the deadliest Air India crash by cutting off fuel supply mid-flight. With eyewitness pilot testimony, cockpit voice analysis, and aviation experts weighing in, the story reveals deep tensions between official caution and damning preliminary findings. What happened in those fatal minutes is key and could transform pilot safety policies worldwide. Drop your take below and subscribe for updates on this unfolding investigation.